the channel, guys. We've got another breakdown of a UFC pay-per-view event, UFC 272 this weekend, Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. And it's a belter. And in terms of predicting this week, we've got 7 fights on the verdict card to make our calls on. Pretty excited for it. No belt on the line. Dana said that the baddest motherfucker belt might go up for grabs, but that remains to be seen. A few late changes to the card weakened it a little bit, but I'm still looking forward to some of the matchups that we've got. A little recap, kind of, from my last video was the previous pay-per-view event, Rob Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Man, I went really well. This was my only video so far of 2022. This will be my second. We got a gold badge on verdict, and we actually profited 6.64 units in the betting section. Had some really nice calls within that, and just read those fights well. So hoping to do the same. Like I said, those 7 fights to get through, so we better not fuck about any longer. Down on the prelims, we've got Marina Rodriguez versus Yan Xiaonan. Rodriguez 1.21 times on verdict and $1.35. Yan Xiaonan 5.85 times on verdict and $3.05 at the bookies. I was surprised when I was doing some research for this fight that these girls have pretty similar dimensions. To me, I thought Marina was going to be way longer, but even though statistically she isn't, I think it's going to look that way in the cage because she fights very, very long. She's got a nice straight jab, and that power hand comes out very straight as well. She uses her kicks, and I fancy her in this fight. She's a very elusive striker, and she's definitely the better rounded striker, in my opinion. Yan Xiaonan, she does have a good skill set. I think she's a great combination puncher, but she does tend to fight in flurries, and she doesn't use her kicks very well on the edge of range. In terms of countering where Yan is good, kind of on her entries, I think that Marina's footwork and her lateral evasiveness is going to be too advanced for Xiaonan. And I think that's going to frustrate her a lot, and I think she's going to find herself chasing Marina and just getting countered super clean. Marina is very adept at throwing kicks, punches off her back foot. And yeah, she's just so great to watch. If I had to liken her to another fighter, I'd say Corey Sandhagen, which is pretty awesome rap, I think, because I think we can all agree that Corey Sandhagen is such a fluid, versatile, stand-up fighter. And yeah, I think Marina is going to have her way. To talk a bit of grappling, Xiaonan, she's been exposed on the mat. Marina has as well to an extent. I don't really think we see it that much in this fight, but I would say that Rodriguez has an edge in the clinch battle, and therefore the grappling scenarios. I think Xiaonan will have difficulty escaping that kind of tie clinch that Rodriguez grabs onto, and I think that Marina's going to finish this fight. You know, she's proven to have power, and stylistically, with Xiaonan chasing and getting countered and not really having the same weapons on the edge of range that Marina has, I just think she's going to get touched up. I think it's a recipe for a knockout, and yeah, I'm taking it in the 3rd round, an accumulation, you could say, accumulation of damage. But yeah, I like the verdict price, 4.87 times for a 3rd round knockout. Moving on up the card, we've got Jalen Turner versus Jamie Malarkey. Jalen Turner, the verdict underdog, 2.30 times, but the betting favourite at $1.57. Coming back with Jamie Malarkey, 1.77 times on verdict and $2.30 at the bookies. To cut it relatively short, I think that this verdict price around Jalen Turner is a gift. At 11-5, his record is deceiving. It paints a pretty poor picture of him, but I think he's super solid. He's got really pretty long striking with a real snap and power behind his hands for such a lanky frame. His timing, his angles, exceptional. He has a really dangerous kicking game, and then he also has that ground game to go with it. He's strangely strong and good with his positioning. That kind of relates to his strength once on the mat, and then his submission game is there. You know, he threatens with a variety of techniques, and he has those long limbs to do so. I don't want to completely discredit Jamie Malarkey because he has some good traits. Obviously, the public are seeing that with him being priced as a favourite on verdict right now. I think his pressure's good. He's got good conditioning, and he also obviously carries power in his hands. He's got 10 pro wins by knockout. But for mine, his defense isn't quite there. He gets hit a lot, and he does get hit at the end of punches, which can accentuate kind of the power that they come in with. You roll with them less. You look at his first fight in the UFC, Brad Riddell really put a beating on this guy. And to his credit, he stayed in the fight. He's not going to go away easy. He is tough. He's a dogged guy. And Jalen Turner does give me some concerns with his chin. He's been shut off 3 times in his career. But I just think his range management is going to prevail in this fight. I think he's going to have the superior movement, the more fluid striking. And down to Jamie's defense, I think he's going to land everything he throws. And then if Jamie wants to mix it up with a bit of a wrestling game plan, get Jalen off of his feet. I think that Turner's plenty capable in the grappling department to defend that route, even use his own submission game in those exchanges. So I've got Jalen Turner. I've got him via knockout in round 1 at 5.08 times. The round 1 play is a bit of a lean on history, you could say. Jalen Turner, 8 pro wins by knockout, 7 of those in the first round. So that's where my ticket lies. First fight of the main card, we've got Sergey Spivak versus Greg Hardy. Spivak 1.58 times on verdict and $1.43. Greg Hardy 2.71 times and $2.70. How wild is it that this fight is going to make Greg Hardy a 10-fight UFC veteran, which doesn't even include the 2 fights that he had on the Contender Series. To me, that's crazy. This dude has been very, very active. Anyway, as for this matchup, it's simple in a sense, but it's quite difficult to choose which route you're going to predict. Essentially, I think that Greg Hardy's game off of his back is mush, and if Sergey gets him down, I see him really having his way with guard passes, control, and ultimately a finish via submission or ground and pound. But on the feet, Sergey Spivak isn't useless on the feet, but Hardy is definitely better. Spivak's movement can look a little laborious. He isn't very fast. He isn't very advanced with his technique. And for mine, Greg Hardy is really, really fast. He feints, he throws kicks. He can be reckless, but he does move around pretty lightly and has some nice striking traits. And obviously the power. And he's such a big guy. His defensive wrestling is solid. He's got that NFL base. He is technically okay in the clinch with fighting grips and getting his hips back. And I don't think his conditioning is that shit. He did use a buffer between rounds, but for heavyweight standards, his conditioning isn't poor. So, like I kind of curtain raised this fight, it's one of 2 ways. The public do like to see Greg Hardy lose, and I get it, but it always adds an element of value to his side due to the public bias, and that is evident in the verdict and betting lines for this matchup. And for that reason, against someone like Spivak, who I'm still not really sold on, I'm going to take Greg Hardy. Sergey's been slept twice, both times against big heavyweights in Tom Aspinall and Walt Harris. I can definitely see Hardy doing similar things here, and I've got him to do it in round 1 at 3.25 times. That's the call. Next up, we've got Kevin Holland versus Alex Oliveira. Kevin Holland, the public are loving him, smashing him down to 1.16 times on verdict, and he sits at $1.30 at the bookies. Oliveira, a pretty wide underdog on verdict, 7.43 times and $3.35 at the bookies. Like I just said, Kevin Holland is really short. I don't like him being this short, but I think this is a tune-up fight for him from the UFC. Alex Oliveira, he's a warrior. He has some solid wins on his resume, but currently battling a 3-fight skid. and he really hasn't had a solid performance in the UFC for about 4 years. You know, he used to lean on his grappling a lot more to win middle moments of fights, but he really doesn't implement that much anymore. For whatever reason, I don't know. Perhaps it's his submission defense. He has lost via submission 6 times in his career. But you watch his recent fights and he just does not commit to his wrestling entries. Guys can peel him off with relative ease. And, we may see him go to that route in this fight because of the matchup. Kevin Holland's kind of biggest hole being the defensive wrestling. So, it's going to be intriguing to see if Alex Oliveira commits himself to the grappling, because it could be an area of success for him in this bout. But you see those holes of Kevin Holland's with the defensive grappling. They've been exposed by big middleweights in Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori. Alex Oliveira is not that type of guy. He doesn't have that type of frame, and he isn't half as dominant a grappler as those two. So I'm definitely not comfortable hanging my hat on tipping Alex Oliveira in the hopes that he's going to be or implement like a smothering wrestling kind of performance. Because even if he goes grappling heavy, if he's not chest to chest on the mat, Kevin Holland is going to be throwing up offense. You know, whether that be submissions or punches. You know, you look at the Jacare Souza knockout, it was ridiculous. Aside from the grappling on the feet, it's Kevin Holland all day for me. Oliveira, he gets by and his movement can look good early, but his defensive footwork is poor. He gets caught at the end of punches, and Holland's straight shots come out like pistons. He's going to be the much faster fighter. In my opinion, he's going to have more power. His movement's better, his timing's better. I think he's going to find his range early in the first round on Alex Oliveira and just tee off. I don't think Oliveira is going to be rolling with the shots. I don't think he's going to be getting his feet back far enough. Kevin Holland is really long and lanky, and that is just going to accentuate the power, the pop on his punches. And although Alex Oliveira has a solid chin, I think he gets put down. The easy call from there would be Kevin Holland to follow up with a ground and pound finish, but the Tadpole doesn't make easy calls. And on this one, I'm actually taking a Kevin Holland submission. And to be honest, at these verdict odds, I think it's a great play. The submission multiplier being over 10 times that of the knockout multiplier. And, because I don't think Oliveira goes out cold on the feet. He has a hell of a chin. I don't think he gets starched. I think he will get dropped, but it's going to require follow-up. And in that case, Oliveira is no doubt going to give up a compromising position as he tries to survive. Roll to the back. Kevin will swoop on that. Lock up a rear naked choke. I also don't mind the fact of having a submission ticket in case Kevin Holland does get taken down. Alex Oliveira does manage to implement a grappling heavy game plan, and then, Kevin being super active off his back, is looking for subs that way. Anywho, Kevin Holland first round submission 19.05 times. That's the call. Of the 6 Oliveira submission losses, 4 of them were in the first frame, so a bit of history to back that round bet. Next fight, Edson Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell. Barboza 2.04 times on verdict and $2.25. Bryce Mitchell 1.96 times on verdict and $1.61. You look at recent performances, it would appear that Bryce Mitchell has kind of taken his grappling to the next level. You look at his last 2 fights, and his pressure, his strength on the mat, and ability to hold his opponent down for extended periods is very impressive. In the Charles Rosa fight, he only hit 3 takedowns because Charles couldn't get up on any one of them. He just hit one around, which is a pretty terrifying prospect. You look at Edson Barboza, is this the start of his decline? The man's a legend and has got some of the most vivid knockouts in UFC history. But his last fight, that knockout loss to Giga Chikadze, did that show us a regression? I'm not usually one to keep myself up on thoughts like that until I see a trend. but I am kind of there for this fight. It's tricky, but in my head I'm kind of validating that a knockout loss to Giga Chikadze isn't a terrible thing, especially as before that, for him, it was wins against Shane Burgos and Makwan Amirkhani, and before that, the fight against Ige, which really could have gone his way, and then another really close split decision loss to Felder before that. I think I'm going to have to see more to say that Edson's done. As for styles, this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. Bryce Mitchell, he's going to look to work the grappling. I doubt we see him strike for very long at all. When he is striking, pretty rudimentary. He's somewhat light on his feet and will kick. He'll push a side kick or like a hook kick. But ultimately, look to sweep the hips, follow his opponent to the cage and secure a takedown. Edson Barboza, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know here. He's such a fluid, smooth striker. He seamlessly throws kicks up with no telegraph. His boxing, great. His bodywork is fantastic. He's going to be faster. He's going to be so much better on the feet. I do have some concerns that Edson's not going to access his full arsenal, being kicks and knees in the concern or the threat of Bryce Mitchell taking and timing takedowns off the back of it. But I don't think Bryce is going to be catching those thunderous kicks that Edson rails in, especially if they're to the head. And we did see in Bryce's last fight against Andre Fili that Fili did have some success with high kicks, and he hit some flying knees on entry takedowns that were effective. In particular, in that second round, Bryce Mitchell actually got kind of wobbled by a flying knee. So I hope that Edson follows that template and stays true to his kind of techniques and his most positive attributes. It all comes down to whether Edson can keep Bryce Mitchell off of him, and for the whole fight, I don't think he can. But can he for enough of the fight? And that's a very big maybe. It's so intriguing. Ultimately, I can't pass this value on Edson. It's an absolutely massive test for Mitchell. Edson's got so many weapons. He is a classy veteran, so dangerous on the feet, nothing like Bryce Mitchell would have ever come against before. He's going to have to get on the front foot, be mounting pressure to make those wrestling entries a little easier to see, a little more telegraphed. And he did do that against Makwan Amirkhani, the last kind of wrestler that he fought, and he managed to defend those takedowns really well. He's got good hips, he's got good sprawls, and if they are coming at him whilst he's the pressure fighter, I think he's well poised to defend. Of course, Makwan did get Edson down in the last round. We know that Edson can drop off a little bit, and that is a concern. But for the times on the feet, he's going to be so much faster. His takedown defense is solid. It reads at 78%. I feel like his bodywork is going to pay dividends, especially as when he is hitting those hands to the midsection, his arms are low. Bryce is going to have to get underneath those to get to Edson's hips. I think if Edson just keeps fucking aiming that body all night, it's going to wear on Bryce like crazy and also put him in the best position possible to defend takedown attempts. I'm taking Barboza via knockout in the second round at 3.6 times. Set up by a body shot. Like I've said, I think it's going to be a huge weapon. And that's that. Co-main event, the fill-in, Rafael dos Anjos versus Renato Moicano. Dos Anjos 1.37 times and $1.55. Moicano 3.74 times and $2.34. I do really like Moicano. I've been a fan of his for a while. I love his boxing. I think he's pretty fast. He's really quite long, especially when he was a featherweight, and his volume's solid. And his defense is pretty sound as well. It's just his chin that has failed him in the past. You look at this matchup though in RDA, he's not a big hitter, which is a factor in this fight. Moicano doesn't have to worry about his chin so much. And I feel like that's going to get Moicano more confident stepping into the fight, letting his hands go, And with that scenario, he actually becomes quite dangerous. His pressure's going to go up. As for RDA, it feels like he's dropped off. It really does. But I feel like that's mainly just his inactivity talking. We haven't seen him since 2020. Because you read the resume, in the last 11 years, he has only dropped fights to Khabib, Alvarez, Ferguson, Covington, Usman, Leon Edwards, and Michael Chiesa. They're all big names, and the four most recent losses are all big, strong welterweights. This fight, it's at catchweight, but it's against a lightweight in Moicano who was once a featherweight. I think that suits RDA a lot. He's up against his type of frame again. Although Moicano is long, RDA is going to be the much stronger guy, and that suits his game plan to a T, which is clinch fight and grapple for a full 25 minutes. At range, RDA is going to have trouble with Moicano's boxing. It honestly baffles me. It baffles me every time how Moicano has 0 wins by knockout in his pro career when his hands can look so good. But yeah, in close against the cage, it's RDA all day, and the style, it's a little boring, yes, but it is super effective. Of course, on the mat, Moicano is such a dangerous customer. He's a genius in the submission grappling department, and he's going to be a threat down there. But Rafael, he's never been submitted. He's a very, very smart grappler. His IQ is through the roof. He very rarely, if ever, puts himself in compromising positions. I think this fight goes to a decision. Potentially a controversial or really close call, because I think the RDA is going to have a lot of control time in this fight, but be very placid and not really move towards a finish at all, whereas Moicano will have bigger moments and probably mount some damage on the feet and then even threaten with subs on the ground, which is going to make it very tricky to score rounds. But I think that the size and the strength of Dos Anjos is going to make a big difference. Plus the late notice of this bout and the fact that it's 25 minutes. It's a very difficult kind of circumstance for Moicano to come in and be successful here. So I'm thinking RDA is going to get the nod in a close one. A basement XP wager for this. It's only 2.19 times, but that's the play. Main event. Let's go. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. Covington 1.33 times on verdict and $1.28, pretty closely represented there. And Masvidal 4.04 times and $3.45. This is a grudge match of epic proportions. Masvidal, these guys used to be boys, training partners, brothers, roommates, whatever. Now they're not. The beef will be squared come Saturday night / Sunday morning for my Australasia counterparts. Masvidal is a star of the sport. He is one of the more notable fighters on the roster that cannot be denied. And Colby, similarly, very well known. He's the notorious, unlikable guy who plays that role, and it works well. I feel like Colby is the better fighter, plain and simple. I think that his chain wrestling, his smothering pressure, and his strength in the clinch are massive factors in this fight, and that he likely wins. But MMA is never that simple, because Jorge's a madman, but he's technical. He is strong, his strength outperforms his physique for sure, and that was evident in his ability to clinch fight with Usman. He was getting out of position for the majority of that bout, but his balance held true. His takedown defense was solid. He kept fighting grips and turning into Usman and going over under, circling in towards his under. He was doing all the right things. In a clinch scenario, it's not going to be a smooth 25 minutes for Colby Covington. And at range, of course I favour Jorge. Slightly favoured dimensionally, but technically favoured a lot. He is the much more versatile striker. He is faster. He has better offensive and defensive footwork. And those leg kicks, man, he's going to touch Colby's legs up, and that is something we have not seen Covington have to endure before, especially in a long 25-minute fight. How are his pins going to hold up after they've kind of absorbed 20, 30, 40 leg kicks, and you're 20 minutes into a fight where you've been grappling with a dude or trying to enforce the grappling the entire time. As for Colby's durability, though, he's solid. Him getting knocked out would surprise me. Of course, I'm open to being shocked, but he really did take some big shots from Usman, and Usman's striking has come such a way that I'm pretty confident in saying that some of those shots that Usman hit him with are harder than what Jorge is going to hit him with. And of course it doesn't always work like that. There's timing and placement that factors in. But it would surprise me to see Colby asleep, essentially. Ultimately, the way I read this fight, I don't see Colby allowing much space at all. I think, him and Usman, they fought at range a fair bit. They were feeling each other striking out. They, thought that, or each of them thought that they had the superior skill set. In this matchup, I think it's more obvious that Jorge, that's where he wins. And say what we want about Colby. Colby's got a great fight IQ, and I think he's not going to risk a fight at range in the center of the octagon. Colby's going to be in on the hips, moving forwards, getting his hands on Masvidal, chain wrestling, settling for the clinch, and then just using trips, using his positioning off the cage to drag Masvidal down. And another basement XP wager, because the multiplier is so short, but I've got Colby by decision at 1.98 times. I think it's a pretty straightforward call, and that's the card. Let's get into the bets. We'll wrap this one up. What have we got here? We've got 5 single plays, opening up the verdict slate. A nice early one for all you pundits. We've got Marina Rodriguez via knockout at $4.33 on Sportsbet. A few fights ago, we did manage to get Marina Rodriguez up around the $7.50 mark to win by knockout. She has shortened up, but that comes with what you see, and the bookies are responding to just that. She has fantastic hands. I think the way Zhao fights, her likelihood of getting frustrated, moving forwards, and just getting countered and hit at the end of shots, snapping her head back. Like I said in the breakdown, a recipe for a knockout in my opinion. So I like that bet. Next single play, I'm taking Greg Hardy via knockout at $4.25 on Ladbrokes. This is an unreal price. It is by and large his win method. And against a guy like Spivak, this is a great price. Sportsbet already have this into $3.30. Grab it while you can. Next one, I'm taking Holland via knockout or submission, the double chance at $1.90 on Bet365. Again, this is a tune-up fight for Kevin Holland. He should be finishing Alex Oliveira at this point. Kevin Holland's a bit of a problem at 170, and the moneyline play, the split $1.90 down the guts. I like that bet. Taking a half unit on top of that, Kevin Holland via submission at $11 on Ladbrokes. That is my call on verdict. The history for Alex Oliveira to get himself in really compromising spots on the mat, I like. I like that these odds are so high for Kevin Holland, who is a purple belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, I think, and always looking to do strange shit in his bouts. I think the $11 price tag is far too high. And then another half unit play, and then this is another half unit play. Edson Barboza via knockout in the second or third round at $7 on Sportsbet. Of course, this rules out that first round play. I see a lot of people who are on Edson by knockout thinking the first round is where it happens. I think Edson remains dangerous, and I think Bryce has that element of youth and durability that he may get hurt, fight through first round, and still secure a takedown, whatever he has to do to survive. But what I saw in that second round against Andre Fili, when Fili defended a takedown at the start of the round, defended another grappling scenario, Bryce Mitchell, he looked to be battling some demons in his head, and Fili really teed off on him on the feet. And a more experienced striker, a more credentialed striker like Edson Barboza, I think can put Bryce Mitchell away. in that scenario. So the second, third round players are lean on that at really good odds. The multi, it's 3 legs. It's opened up by Greg Hardy by knockout. I'd love that leg. I think that's a fantastic way to really boost these multis odds up. Taking a filler in the middle, the Kevin Holland double chance. I think that is a shoe-in. And then rounding it out with Edson Barboza to win by knockout or points at $19.92 on Ladbrokes. Obviously, my verdict call is Edson by knockout, and I like that call. But if he can mount enough damage and defend a few of the takedowns, I think he can steal 2 rounds and win a decision as well. So, bit of security with that. That's it, guys. That's the predictions. That is the bets. The complete record for the career and this year is down in the description. Link to my socials, link to my verdict if you want to follow me on there. See how I'm scoring fights come fight night. It's all there, guys. If you agree with me, disagree with me, chat about it. Put something down in the comments. I would love for you guys who come around and do listen to the videos to put down your predictions, and in following prediction videos I can maybe shout out someone who had the best calls, best bets. We'll see how that goes. As for the next time I'll see you guys or talk to you guys, don't know when it will be. If not before, it'll be the next pay-per-view. I'm kind of sticking to pay-per-views for the moment, but wouldn't mind doing breakdown videos for ones in between if they tickle my fancy. Appreciate it, guys. See you on the next one. Catch up.